Have you ever found yourself staring at the ticking clock, knowing there's work to be done, yet feeling powerless to move, as if something heavy holds you back? That weight, my friend, is not just laziness, it's the silent thief of dreams, creeping into the corners of your heart and mind, binding your aspirations in chains that grow stronger with each passing day. Laziness often begins subtly, like a whisper in the mind that there's always tomorrow. But tomorrow turns into the next day, and soon you're trapped in a cycle of inaction, where your deepest desires remain unfulfilled, your goals unattained. But why do we allow this to happen? Perhaps it's the fear of failure, the dread of the unknown, or the overwhelming pressure of perfection. Laziness is often a defense mechanism, a shield we put up to protect ourselves from the disappointment that might come with trying and failing. But in this state of inertia, our dreams wither and our spirits grow dull. The pain of unrealized potential becomes a quiet torment, a constant reminder of the gap between who we are and who we could be. Yet there is a way out. Just as C.S. Lewis reminds us, the journey may seem long and arduous, but it is the path that leads us back to our true selves, to the fulfillment of our deepest longings. To overcome laziness, we must first confront the fears and doubts that fuel it. We must recognize that this is not just a battle of the body, but of the mind and soul. In this message, we will explore the subtle signs that laziness has taken root in your life and the destructive outcomes it can bring if left unchecked. But more importantly, we will guide you through practical steps to break free from these chained steps that will empower you to reclaim your energy, renew your sense of purpose, and reignite the fire within. Imagine what your life could look like if you no longer allowed laziness to dictate your actions. Picture yourself waking up each day with a sense of determination, moving steadily toward your goals, and finally seeing the fruits of your labor. This is not just a dream, it is within your reach. So stay with us as we delve into these powerful truths, uncovering the keys to overcoming laziness and unlocking your full potential. If this message touches something deep within you, if it speaks to the struggles you've faced, please like and share your thoughts in the comments. Together, we can support each other on this journey, moving forward with renewed strength and unwavering resolve. The path may be long, but every step you take is a step closer to the person you were meant to be. Now, we all know the 7 deadly sins that the church combined, and one of them is actually slothfulness or laziness. In the 5th and 6th centuries, many in the church included diligence on the list of 7 heavenly virtues to counter laziness, which was one of the 7 deadly sins. Why? Because the saints throughout redemptive history have always considered diligence a virtue. Both the Old Testament and the New Testament consistently command us to be diligent and warn against the dangers of being slothful. For example, Romans 12 verse 11 says, "Do not be slothful in zeal, but be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord." In 2 Thessalonians 3 verse 10 to 11, it says, "If anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat. For we hear that some among you walk in idleness, not busy at work, but busybodies." This is not God pushing the idea of us constantly being busy, but for us to be active. In 2 Peter 1 verse 10, it says, "Therefore, brothers, be the more diligent to confirm your calling and election, for if you practice these qualities you will never fail." Laziness is a condition that is often misunderstood and underestimated. But what lies beneath this lack of motivation? Is it truly just an unwillingness to work, or is there something deeper, something that gnaws at the soul? C.S. Lewis once wrote, "The only thing you can be sure of influencing others is the quality of your own life." Laziness, then, might not just be a refusal to act, but a reflection of an internal struggle, a disconnect between one's desires and actions. From a biblical standpoint, laziness is not merely about inactivity, it's a deviation from the path of diligence and purpose. Proverbs 6 verse 6 to 11 uses the industrious ant as an example, urging the sluggard to reflect on its ways and grow in wisdom. The ant, seemingly insignificant, becomes a profound symbol of diligence, reminding us that even the smallest creatures fulfill their purpose. In contrast, laziness leads to poverty, not just material poverty, but a poverty of the spirit. Proverbs 13 verse 4 tells us, The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied here. The focus shifts to the soul, highlighting that the consequences of laziness extend beyond the physical realm. But why does laziness creep into our lives? Could it be that it stems from a place of fear, a fear of failure, or perhaps even a fear of success? Lewis often spoke of the internal battles we face, the inner rings that dictate our actions and inactions. Laziness might be a symptom of an unresolved conflict within, where the desire to achieve is overshadowed by the fear of the unknown. This fear paralyzes, leading one to choose inaction over effort, idleness over exertion.
The dictionary definitions of laziness, such as the one from Webster's, which describes it as a disinclination to activity and exertion despite being able to act, only scratch the surface. They describe the outward behavior but fail to capture the inner turmoil that often accompanies it. The Oxford and Cambridge dictionaries echo this sentiment, emphasizing an unwillingness to work or use energy. However, these definitions do not address the underlying causes, the emotional and psychological barriers that prevent one from engaging fully in life.
To truly understand laziness, we must ask ourselves, what is it that we are avoiding? What fears or doubts are we allowing to hold us back? Lewis reminds us that the future is something which everyone reaches at the rate of 60 minutes an hour, whatever he does, whoever he is. Time moves forward regardless of our actions, and with each passing moment, we are either moving closer to our purpose or further away from it. Laziness, then, is not just a physical state but a spiritual battle. It is a choice to remain stagnant when we are called to grow, to be idle when we are meant to act. By understanding the root causes of laziness and addressing them, we can break free from its grasp and live a life of purpose and fulfillment. Just as the ant thrives through diligence, so too can we find richness in our souls through persistent effort and faith. Laziness often creeps into our lives unnoticed, disguising itself in the form of procrastination and delayed action. But how can we truly recognize this subtle enemy within us? C.S. Lewis, in his profound exploration of the human condition, once said, "The real problem of the Christian life comes where people do not usually look for it. It comes the very moment you wake up each morning." This statement urges us to reflect on the small decisions we make each day, often postponing what should be done now, underestimating the impact of our choices. Procrastination, a seemingly harmless act, is more than just a delay. It's a reflection of our inner struggles, a mirror showing our reluctance to face challenges. The Bible, with its timeless wisdom, addresses this directly. Proverbs 20 verse 4 offers a poignant reminder: sluggards do not plow in season, sow at harvest time. They look but find nothing. This scripture serves as a stark warning that when we put off what should be done today, we rob ourselves of tomorrow's blessings. But why do we procrastinate? Is it fear of failure, or perhaps a deep-seated doubt in our own abilities? Lewis, in his work Mere Christianity, discusses the idea of the law of undulation, where our lives are filled with peaks and troughs. During the troughs, or low points, we are more susceptible to laziness and procrastination, believing that our efforts may not be fruitful. Yet, it is in these moments of doubt that our character is truly tested. Consider this: when faced with a daunting task, do you delay because you feel inadequate, or do you delay because the comfort of inaction is easier? Lewis challenges us to confront these inner questions, urging us to see that procrastination is not just a bad habit but a spiritual struggle, a battle between our higher aspirations and our earthly desires. How often do we find ourselves at the end of the day, regretting the things left undone, the opportunities missed? This regret is not merely a consequence of laziness, it is the soul's way of mourning the potential we allowed to slip away. In this light, procrastination becomes more than just an inconvenience, it is a theft of our God-given purpose. Therefore, to overcome laziness, we must first recognize it within ourselves, not just in our actions, but in our thoughts and attitudes. By examining our daily choices and aligning them with our higher purpose, we can break free from the chains of procrastination and step into the fullness of life that God intends for us. In conclusion, Let us not deceive ourselves into thinking that laziness is merely a trivial flaw. As C.S. Lewis so eloquently puts it, good and evil both increase at compound interest. That is why the little decisions you and I make every day are of such infinite importance. Our daily battle against procrastination is not just about productivity, it's about living a life that honors the opportunities and responsibilities entrusted to us by God. So, ask yourself, what will you do with this day, this moment? Will you delay, or will you act? The choice, as always, is yours. In our journey through life, how often do we find ourselves neglecting the very tasks that once seemed so vital to our purpose? This neglect, a quiet surrender to inaction, is more than mere forgetfulness. It is a subtle form of laziness that can erode the foundations of our lives. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "It may be hard for an egg to turn into a bird. It would be a jolly sight harder for it to learn to fly while remaining an egg." This quote powerfully illustrates the danger of stagnation. When we fail to nurture our responsibilities, we remain in a state of unfulfilled potential, much like the egg that never hatches. Consider the parable of the vineyard, as described in Proverbs 24 verse 30-34. The once thriving vineyard, left in disarray by its owner, stands as a stark symbol of what happens when we neglect our duties. Weeds overtake the land, the walls crumble, and what was once fertile ground for growth becomes barren and fruitless. Is this not a reflection of our own lives when we allow laziness to seep in? When we abandon our responsibilities, whether they be in our work, our relationships, or our spiritual lives, we pave the way for ruin. But why do we allow this to happen? Could it be that we fear the demands of growth, the challenges that come with stepping out of our comfort zones? Lewis suggests that true growth requires a willingness to break free from the shell of complacency. It is only when we embrace our duties, no matter how daunting they may seem, that we can truly flourish. Are we tending to our vineyards, or are we allowing laziness to take root? Are we nurturing the seeds of our potential, or are we content to remain in the safety of our unhatched eggs? The choice is ours, but the consequences of neglect are clear. Just as the vineyard falls into ruin, so too can our lives if we do not remain vigilant in our responsibilities. The path to true fulfillment lies in action, in embracing our duties with the determination to see them through. When we think of rest, we often associate it with restoration and peace. Yet there is a fine line where rest becomes indulgence. Have you ever asked yourself, am I resting or am I escaping? C.S. Lewis once said, "We are far too easily pleased," which might speak directly to our tendency to find comfort in sleep, rather than facing the challenges of the day. Lewis's observation about human nature suggests that we often settle for lesser pleasures when greater, more fulfilling work awaits us. Could it be that our love for sleep is less about physical need and more about avoiding the demands of life? The Bible speaks to this when it asks, "How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep?" Proverbs 6 verse 9-11. These are not just questions of time but of purpose. The excessive pursuit of sleep, as the proverb suggests, leads not to rest but to a barren life, stripped of productivity and ripe for poverty. Lewis might challenge us to reconsider whether our comfort in sleep is a subtle way of avoiding the responsibility and potential that God has placed before us. Are we sleeping to restore, or are we sleeping to retreat from the life we're called to live? True rest, after all, is found not in the avoidance of work, but in the fulfillment of it, in embracing the purpose God has for each of us. Imagine a person standing at the crossroads of opportunity, where the road to progress is paved with effort, yet they remain rooted, frozen by a self-imposed fear. C.S. Lewis once remarked, "We are not necessarily doubting that God will do the best for us, we are wondering how painful the best will turn out to be." This quote speaks to the heart of the lazy person's plight, an avoidance rooted not in mere lethargy, but in a deeper fear of the unknown, of the effort required, and of the potential pain that change might bring.
When you face a task that challenges you, do you ever find yourself concocting reasons to avoid it? Perhaps you convince yourself that the risks are too great, much like the sluggard in Proverbs 22 verse 13 who exclaims, "There's a lion outside. I'll be killed in the public square." The humor in this exaggerated fear masks a more profound truth: the tendency to fabricate excuses as a shield against the discomfort of growth and the uncertainty of new ventures.
But what if these excuses are not just barriers but mirrors, reflecting deeper insecurities and doubts? C.S. Lewis understood that our fears often disguise themselves as rational thoughts, leading us away from the very actions that could bring about our transformation. The sluggard's lion is not merely a metaphor for laziness, but for the irrational justifications we create to remain within our comfort zones. Are your excuses keeping you safe, or are they keeping you stagnant? Are you mistaking the discomfort of effort for a threat, when in reality, it is the necessary path to growth? The challenge is not merely in recognizing the excuses, but in understanding the fear behind them. How often do we allow our inner lions, our unfounded fears, to dictate our choices, keeping us from the blessings that lie just beyond the effort we dread? By confronting these fears and acknowledging them for what they are, we open the door to progress. Lewis reminds us that true courage is not the absence of fear, but the determination to move forward despite it. So, the next time you find yourself making excuses, ask yourself, is this fear speaking, or is it laziness masquerading as wisdom? In facing this question, you may discover that the lion outside is not as terrifying as it seems, and that the path to success is merely waiting for you to take the first step.
Have you ever felt the weight of untapped potential, like a seed that never breaks through the soil? This inner struggle often arises from a lack of initiative, a silent thief of dreams that lingers in the heart. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." This speaks to the human condition, where the reluctance to take the first step often leads to a life of unfulfilled potential. The Bible offers a vivid portrayal of the sluggard, a person who waits for external motivation, constantly needing others to ignite their spark. This dependency breeds not only stagnation but a deeper sense of frustration and inadequacy.
But why do we hesitate? What holds us back from taking the initiative? Perhaps it's the fear of failure or the comfort of staying in the known, even if it means living a life less than what we're capable of. Lewis challenges us to confront this fear, suggesting that the true tragedy is not in failing but in never beginning at all. When we lack the initiative, we allow our lives to be governed by external forces, surrendering control and, ultimately, our destiny. Imagine the sluggard, always waiting, always depending on others to guide them, yet never fully realizing their own power to change. This portrayal isn't just a biblical admonition, it's a mirror reflecting our own lives when we shy away from taking that crucial first step. In Lewis's words, "We are what we believe we are. If we believe ourselves to be incapable, then we become prisoners of that belief, forever caught in a cycle of inertia."
Yet, within each of us lies the capacity to break free from this pattern. The question is, will you? Will you choose to step out in faith, take the risk, and embrace the potential within you? Or will you allow fear and laziness to dictate the course of your life? The choice is yours, and it's one that will determine whether you live a life of purpose or one of regret. In the end, it's not about avoiding failure, it's about finding the courage to begin. Let Lewis's words guide you. The task of the modern educator is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts. This is the essence of initiative, watering the deserts of our lives with action, even when the outcome is uncertain. Only then can we truly fulfill our potential and live a life of meaning and impact.
When reflecting on the challenges you face, have you ever considered how your actions or inactions might shape your future? Laziness, a subtle yet potent force, often lures us into a false sense of comfort. But what are the real costs? C.S. Lewis, in his writings, frequently delves into the dangers of complacency. He warns us that the safest road to hell is the gradual one, the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, without signposts. This gradual descent, like the creeping shadow of laziness, can lead to unforeseen consequences, one of the most evident being poverty. Poverty, often misunderstood, is not merely a lack of wealth but can signify a deeper spiritual impoverishment. Proverbs 10 verse 4 underscores this with its stark contrast: lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Here, the Bible is not merely discussing financial matters, it is drawing a connection between our diligence or lack thereof and the state of our souls. However, it is crucial to remember, as Lewis and the Bible both illustrate, that poverty is not always a consequence of laziness. Consider Job, a man of unwavering faith, whose trials included profound loss and poverty, not due to his negligence, but as part of a divine test. So, how do we reconcile this? The question that stirs within us is, are we allowing laziness to carve a path toward not just material lack but spiritual desolation as well? Lewis's wisdom guides us to examine our hearts and actions carefully. Are we slipping down that gentle slope? Or are we striving, even in small ways, to be diligent and faithful in our responsibilities? In the end, this isn't about condemning ourselves for every moment of rest, but about being vigilant. We must ask ourselves, are our actions leading us toward a fulfilling life? Or are we inadvertently choosing a path of lack, both material and spiritual? The Bible warns, and Lewis echoes, that the consequences of our choices are real and profound. It is up to us to heed these warnings, to examine our lives with honesty, and to choose a path of diligence and spiritual richness, avoiding the snares of laziness that lead to poverty. Imagine standing at the crossroads of life, where the paths of effort and inaction diverge. The road of inaction, often chosen by those who shrink from the sweat and toil of daily life, leads to a barren land of unmet needs and unfulfilled potential. C.S. Lewis once remarked, "It may be hard for an egg to turn into a bird, it would be a jolly sight harder for it to learn to fly while remaining an egg." We are like eggs at present, and you cannot go on indefinitely being just an ordinary, decent egg. We must be hatched or go bad. This profound insight urges us to recognize that inaction, staying in the comfort of our shells, leads not to preservation but to decay. When we choose laziness, we close the door on growth and opportunity. Consider the sluggard in Proverbs 20 verse 4, who, refusing to plow in season, finds himself with nothing to harvest. This is not merely a tale of agriculture but a reflection of life's broader truth. Those who do not sow effort into their lives cannot expect to reap the rewards they desire. Yet, how often do we find ourselves making excuses, waiting for someone else to solve our problems or meet our needs? Lewis's words echo here, as he reminds us that remaining in a state of inaction like the unhatched egg leads us nowhere but towards stagnation and unmet desires. But why do we hesitate? What fear or comfort keeps us from breaking out of our shell, from taking that first step toward change? Is it the fear of failure, or perhaps the allure of comfort, that whispers the lie that doing nothing is safer? Lewis would challenge us to question these fears, urging us to consider the greater danger of a life unlived, of potential wasted in the clutches of laziness.
As you stand at your own crossroads, ask yourself, are you content to remain in your shell, or will you take the risk of effort, knowing that it is only through action that we truly begin to live? The path of laziness may seem easy, but it leads only to the barren lands of unmet needs and unfulfilled dreams. The choice is yours. Will you be the egg that goes bad, or will you break free and take flight? Imagine walking through a once beautiful garden, now choked by weeds, its vibrant colors replaced by the dullness of neglect. What happened here? Was it the cruelty of nature, or was it something more insidious, perhaps the silent surrender of the one who was entrusted with its care? This image of decay isn't just about a garden, it's a reflection of a life left untended, a heart abandoned to apathy. C.S. Lewis remarked, "The safest road to hell is the gradual one, the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, without signposts." His words capture the quiet danger of laziness, which doesn't announce itself with loud alarms but seeps into our lives subtly, like a slow-growing mold that eventually overtakes everything. Have you ever considered what might happen if you let things slide just a little? Perhaps you've told yourself that tomorrow will be the day you start working on that project, mending that relationship, or tending to your spiritual life. But what if tomorrow never comes? What if that small seed of laziness plants itself and grows into a thorny bush that wraps around your dreams, your relationships, your very soul? Proverbs 24 verse 30-34 vividly describes a field overrun by thorns, a stone wall broken down, all because the owner allowed a moment of rest to turn into a lifestyle of neglect. It's not just the physical ruin that we must fear, but the deeper, more profound decay of our inner selves.
C.S. Lewis, in his allegorical tale The Screwtape Letters, warns of the drifting that can occur when we fail to be vigilant. He suggests that the road to ruin is paved not with bold sins, but with the quiet and consistent choices to do nothing. This drifting, this laziness, leads not only to the physical decay of our surroundings, but also to the spiritual and emotional ruin that can cripple us from within. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to let things slide, to choose comfort over challenge? And yet, each time we do, we chip away at the strength of our character, the solidity of our faith. So, what's the alternative? How do we guard against this insidious decay? The answer lies in vigilance and deliberate action. It's about choosing to be the gardener of your own life, weeding out the thorns before they take root, repairing the walls before they crumble. C.S. Lewis reminds us that the present is the point at which time touches eternity. What we choose to do or not do right now matters more than we might ever realize. It's the small, daily decisions that determine whether our lives will be lush gardens or barren wastelands. Ask yourself, are there areas in your life where you've allowed laziness to creep in? What would it take to reclaim those spaces, to restore them to their intended beauty? Remember, ruin and decay don't happen overnight. They are the slow, steady results of neglect. But just as ruin takes time, so does restoration, beginning with the choice to act today, not tomorrow. Have you ever paused to consider how many doors of opportunity have silently closed because of inaction? The subtle nature of laziness often disguises itself as comfort, yet it quietly robs us of countless possibilities. C.S. Lewis once observed that the safest road to hell is the gradual one, the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, without signposts. This gradual decline into missed opportunities is often fueled by the ease of doing nothing. We rarely recognize the loss until it's too late, until we find ourselves looking back at a path littered with what-ifs and if-onlys. Imagine a field full of ripe fruit, ready for harvest, yet untouched because the farmer decided to rest just a little longer. The Bible may not explicitly mention missed opportunities as a direct result of laziness, but it warns us against the dangers of sloth and encourages us to be diligent. Proverbs 12 verse 24 tells us, "The hand of the diligent will rule, while the slothful will be put to forced labor." This verse highlights the stark contrast between the rewards of diligence and the bondage that laziness can bring. But beyond the external consequences, have you considered the inner cost? How does the burden of regret weigh on the soul that knows it could have done more, achieved more, if only it had taken action? C.S. Lewis, in his writings, often challenged the complacency of the human spirit, urging us to recognize the value of each moment and the importance of our choices. He reminded us that you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. This wisdom speaks directly to the heart of those who find themselves paralyzed by inaction. It invites us to reflect on our lives, to ask ourselves, what opportunities have I let slip away? And what can I do today to seize the ones still within reach?
The real tragedy of missed opportunities isn't just what is lost, but the potential that remains unrealized. So the next time you find yourself hesitating, remember that each moment is a chance to act, to decide, and to move forward. Don't let laziness be the thief that steals your future. Instead, embrace the diligence that opens doors, knowing that every step you take has the power to shape your destiny.
Frida's journey into faith was one marked by deep emotional struggle and a gradual transformation. As a teenager, she entered the church, but her heart was heavy with unresolved pain. "I cried every day." She recounted, "I was tormented and traumatized. At 18, I was brought to church, and that was when I gave my life to Jesus." It was January 1998. Though she embraced Jesus, her past clung to her, refusing to let go. Forgiveness was elusive, but she sought God's grace, and with the support of friends' prayers, she began the painful process of learning to forgive. What was extraordinary was that not only did Frida find the strength to forgive those who had wronged her, but she also took the radical step of seeking them out in prison. It was there that she extended forgiveness, and in an act of divine grace, even led some to the Lord. The day she truly forgave was the day her nightmares ceased, her chronic back pain vanished, and her life was restored by God. Reflecting on Frida's story, we are reminded of C.S. Lewis's profound insight that to be a Christian means to forgive the inexcusable because God has forgiven the inexcusable in you. Lewis understood the deep wounds that can fester within the soul, wounds that, if left unattended, only grow more painful over time. But as Frida discovered, and as Lewis so often wrote, the power of forgiveness is not just in releasing others from their wrongs, but in freeing ourselves from the chains that bind us. Let's pause and ask ourselves how many of us are carrying wounds believing that time alone will heal them. Lewis warned us that pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our consciences, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. The pain you feel is not meant to destroy you, but to push you toward the only true healer. Only through Jesus can those wounds be transformed into scars that tell a story not of defeat but of victory. When Frida chose to forgive, she didn't just release others from their sins, she released her future into God's hands, declaring that the past would no longer dictate her destiny. But what about you? Have you been deceived into believing that your scars define you, that the chains of your past are too strong to break? Lewis reminds us that you are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. Just as the palm tree grows and snaps the chains that try to hold it back, so too can you grow in Christ and break free from whatever has tried to entangle you. The enemy may whisper lies, telling you that your sin is your identity, but Lewis would counter, you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. Consider this: are there areas in your life where you've allowed the chains to grow into you, thinking they're just part of who you are now? Lewis believed in the transformative power of growth in Christ, the kind of growth that doesn't just make you stronger but fundamentally changes you, breaking every chain that the enemy tries to wrap around you. In Frida's journey, we see the truth of Lewis's words come to life. God forgives the inexcusable in us, and in doing so, he empowers us to forgive the inexcusable in others. It's a challenging, often painful process, but it's also the path to freedom. And as you grow in your faith, as you trust in God's power to heal and restore, you'll find that the chains that once held you captive will fall away, leaving you free to walk in the fullness of God's purpose for your life. So, where do you stand today? Are you ready to let go of the past, to forgive, and to embrace the freedom that Jesus offers? Remember, it's not the scars that define you, but how God uses them to shape your future. Don't let the enemy convince you that your battle is over. Like Frida, you have a choice to hold on to the pain or to release it to God and allow him to turn your wounds into a testimony of his grace and power. Now, maybe you're watching this right now and you feel convicted. You're thinking, okay, I need to stop watching because you know what? You got me. I'm lazy. How do I overcome this? What do I do about it? I'm going to give you 5 biblical steps and then 5 practical steps. How to overcome laziness. In our journey toward personal growth and spiritual fulfillment, one of the most essential pursuits is the search for wisdom and guidance. Proverbs, a book rich with timeless wisdom, repeatedly emphasizes the value of discipline as a remedy for laziness. C.S. Lewis, in his profound exploration of Christian principles, echoes this sentiment. He challenges us to consider the deeper implications of seeking wisdom, not just as a means of self-improvement, but as a transformative experience that aligns our hearts with God's will. Lewis often reminded us that it is not your business to succeed, but to do right when you have done so. The rest lies with God. The book of Proverbs illustrates this vividly, particularly in Proverbs 6 verse 23, where it states, "For this command is a lamp, this teaching is a light, and correction and instruction are the way of life." This is more than a call to action. It is an invitation to engage deeply with the teachings that illuminate our path, much like a lantern guides a traveler through the dark. Lewis's own writings align with this perspective, urging believers to seek knowledge not merely for intellectual gain, but as a means to encounter God's presence more fully. Are we merely reading the words, or are we letting them shape our actions and decisions? Are we, as Lewis would ask, truly allowing these teachings to transform our very being? Another vital component in combating laziness is the influence of role models, those who demonstrate the diligence and discipline we strive to emulate. In Proverbs 6 verse 6, the ant is presented as an unexpected yet powerful model of hard work and foresight. The ant, in its simplicity, embodies the principle of preparation and perseverance, working tirelessly and storing provisions for the future. C.S. Lewis, who often explored the virtues of humility and persistence, might ask us to reflect: who are the ants in our lives? Who exemplifies the virtues we wish to cultivate within ourselves? Lewis believed that our surroundings and the people we choose to admire significantly shape our character. Are we surrounding ourselves with those who encourage us to rise above laziness and embrace a life of purpose? Embracing correction is perhaps one of the most challenging aspects of personal growth, yet it is indispensable. Lewis, in his exploration of pride and humility, would suggest that our resistance to correction often stems from a misplaced sense of self-worth. Proverbs 12 verse 1 bluntly reminds us, "Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but whoever hates correction is stupid." In this, we see the biblical principle that growth comes through humility, through the willingness to accept correction and learn from it. Lewis might ask us to ponder: are we more concerned with preserving our ego than with pursuing truth and wisdom? Are we open to the possibility that others might see our flaws more clearly than we do? The fear of God. As highlighted in Proverbs 9 verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, is another cornerstone of overcoming laziness. Lewis, who deeply understood the awe-inspiring nature of God's majesty, often described this reverence as the foundation of a meaningful life. He believed that true wisdom begins when we recognize our smallness in the face of God's greatness, and this recognition propels us toward a life of diligence and purpose. How do we perceive God in our daily lives? Is our reverence for Him merely a ritual, or does it inspire us to live each day with intentionality and vigor? Finally, reliance on God's strength is crucial in our battle against laziness. Philippians 4 verse 13, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me," serves as a powerful reminder of the spiritual resources available to us. Lewis, whose writings often reflected a deep reliance on divine grace, would encourage us to ask the Holy Spirit for help in overcoming our weaknesses. He understood that our efforts alone are insufficient. We need God's strength to carry us through. Are we willing to admit our limitations and seek God's help, or do we stubbornly attempt to conquer our flaws on our own? In summary, overcoming laziness is a multifaceted process that involves seeking wisdom, learning from diligent role models, embracing correction, cultivating the fear of God, and relying on divine strength. As C.S. Lewis so profoundly illustrated in his works, these principles are not just steps to self-improvement but pathways to a deeper relationship with God. By aligning our lives with these truths, we move closer to the life God intends for us, one of purpose, diligence, and spiritual fulfillment.
Now, here are 5 more practical things to overcome laziness.
Imagine you are standing at the threshold of a vast and complex journey. You see the peaks of achievement in the distance, but the path is unclear. How do you move forward? The first step is to understand that progress is not accidental but intentional. C.S. Lewis once remarked, "You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." This statement serves as a profound reminder that setting clear, smart goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, is not just about planning, it's about defining your journey and giving it meaning. Without clear goals, we wander aimlessly, vulnerable to the distractions and temptations of procrastination. Lewis knew the importance of purpose, noting that the future is something which everyone reaches at the rate of 60 minutes an hour. Whatever he does, Whoever he is, time is a constant, but how we use it determines the direction of our lives. As you contemplate your goals, consider the importance of establishing a daily routine, a practice Lewis himself valued. He believed in the power of discipline, saying, "The only moral that is of any value is that which arises inevitably from the whole cast of the author's mind." A routine is more than a schedule, it is the scaffolding that supports the habits leading to success. For example, dedicating time each morning to devotional practices, whether through reading scripture or listening to spiritually enriching content, can anchor your day in purpose. In a world filled with distractions, a routine acts as a safeguard, guiding you back to what truly matters. But what about the overwhelming tasks that loom large, threatening to stifle your motivation? Lewis would encourage you to break these daunting tasks into smaller, manageable steps. He understood the human condition, recognizing that it's so much easier to pray for a boar than to go and see one. This reflects our natural tendency to avoid what seems difficult. By breaking down a large goal, such as writing a book, into smaller tasks like drafting an outline or committing to a daily word count, you create a series of attainable milestones. Each small victory fuels your momentum, making the larger task less intimidating. In the age of endless distractions, Lewis's insights are more relevant than ever. He wrote, "We live, in fact, in a world starved for solitude, silence, and privacy, and therefore starved for meditation and true friendship. Distractions, particularly those stemming from technology, are the thieves of our time and focus. Identifying and minimizing these distractions is crucial for maintaining productivity. Set boundaries with technology, perhaps by designating specific times to check your phone or browse social media, and create a workspace free from clutter." Lewis valued solitude and reflection, understanding that without them, we cannot achieve true depth in our thoughts or actions. Finally, consider the importance of rewarding progress. Lewis believed that joy is the serious business of heaven. This joy can be mirrored in our earthly endeavors by recognizing and celebrating our achievements, no matter how small. Establishing a rhythm of work and rest, akin to the divine pattern of creation, sustains your motivation. Just as God rested on the seventh day, we too should incorporate rest and reward into our routines, not as an afterthought but as a vital component of our journey. In reflecting on these steps, setting goals, establishing routines, breaking tasks into steps, eliminating distractions, and rewarding progress, ask yourself, what is the next goal that I will set? How will I structure my days to ensure that I am moving forward with intention? How will I celebrate the small victories along the way? By addressing these questions, you align yourself with the wisdom of C.S. Lewis and set the stage for a life of purpose, productivity, and fulfillment.